Services. So I can see a listing of, here's some people in Health and Human Services, I'll contact them.
Right.
Now, this is where procurement can also function as your support. We're here about advocacy. We're advocating business. You're also, and we'll talk about economic development departments in municipalities in a moment, but if you're reaching out to a department and you're getting the stiff arm, the rebuff, I need to know about that. And so you can call the procurement department back and say, I contacted the individual you gave me, and they said never call me again, leave me alone. Return to sender.
No kidding.
If that's happening, then you need to let the procurement department know, because that's not a good government practice.
And why? Why? I mean,
why would that occur?
Right. No. I mean, he's a busy executive, and people act like that. I mean, you and I probably do it sometimes.
Sure, absolutely.
But why is it a policy that's bad government? I mean,
well, because we're all about providing access and ensuring that the
democracy. We live in a democracy.
that the contractors we're using, that the goods and services we're procuring are the best we can get. Now, if I have a contract with you that's a 3-year contract, we were talking about why is government contracting so great? Well, I like to make contracts as long as I can, and usually between 3 and 5 years is about as long as you want to go. If I have a contract and you call me, say, look, I sell widgets, do you buy widgets? I say, yeah, I buy a lot of widgets, but I just awarded a contract. It's a 3-year contract. Marketing yourself to me now, I'm not going to remember you 3 years from now. So what I encourage people, again, go online or go to the government, find out what they do, get copies of contracts. Again, this is all public information.
Say that again, because I don't think people realize this.
Either go online or go to the source, go to the procurement contracting office, get copies of the contracts the government has.
You mean if my competitor sold you the cups last year or something like that, I get a copy of that contract?
That is public information.
You hear that?
You can get
that anywhere else.
You can't. That's right. You get a copy of the contract. You'll get a copy of the price the government's paying.
Listen to that.
You'll get a copy of the solicitation that the government originally issued.
I mean, they're
requesting for the mugs.
Right, exactly.
And you'll get a copy of the actual contract that the government has with Mugs R Us.
Right.
So 3 important pieces of information. I know now what the government was asking for when they advertised their requirement. I have a copy of the actual contract. I can probably also get a copy of the bid that the successful contractor submitted,
as opposed to the final contract.
Right. Now some of the information in that bid may be proprietary and therefore exhumed from that.
That's probably my broker. I don't have a broker. Why didn't I think of this? Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, so you can get a copy of the solicitation, the request that the government put out. You can get a copy of the bid that the bidder submitted. And now, again, that's going to be reviewed, and the proprietary information will be taken out of that. So, but all the other information is available. You'll get a copy of the bid tab, or the tabulation of all the bids received.
So you don't see all the bids that didn't win.
Yeah, typically you won't see the unsuccessful. Well, why do you care?
Exactly.
I mean,
but now what's a tab then?
It's a tabulation of all the bids. Let's say I put on a bid for mugs.
Right.
I got 10 bids for mugs. A tabulation of all the bids received shows all the prices that were submitted by all 10 of those bidders. Now that information is also public information.
The names of the bidders, too?
The names of the bidders.
Wow. So you see all your competitors.
So what you know is that at that day, at 2 o'clock on Tuesday the 12th of that year, this was the price everyone was giving for those. So you know what your competitive range is now.
That's terrific.
And then you can also get a copy of the final contract. So all of that is free information. You just got to ask for it. Now, you promised me you weren't going to scream.
I know.
You just have to ask for it. But most businesses simply don't know what to ask for or who to ask for that information. A lot of that information is becoming increasingly online, but the details on contract documents stuff typically is not, and you have to ask for that. Some policies, procurement office is the place to go for that. Now, some places may have a law that requires, in order to get that, you have to file a Freedom of Information request. They're not trying to be obstinate or difficult. Again, trying to be consistent and also trying to make sure that they have a record of who's asked for what and what it was they were provided.
And I found that those Freedom of Information Act letters, I mean, it's just a standard letter.
It's a standard letter.
It's nothing magic.
Yeah, you don't have to cite chapter and verse. No, please. No, absolutely not. You don't have to. And sometimes you can get help. The procurement office will say, well, you really need to submit a Freedom of Information request. Well, I've never done that. Be honest. Don't try and pretend. So I've never done that. What do I say? Well, and they'll probably tell you, follow this. Yeah. Per the Freedom of Information request, I'm requesting a copy of this contract.
What I found in the past, too, what's neat about finding information in the government is under the Freedom of Information Act, all the Freedom of Information Act letters are available.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
I don't know what to ask for. This is where the question marks is. I don't know what to ask. But if I get all the Freedom of Information Act letters, then
has anyone ever asked for this?
Exactly.
Yes. Can I get a copy of that letter?
Or more so.
Yeah.
I don't know what to ask for at an agency, what they have. But if somebody else figured out what to ask for, I could see.
Well, and that's a very good point because under the Freedom of Information Act, I have to provide you what I can provide you in response to your request. But as I always tell people, the answer given depends upon the question asked.
Absolutely.
So you got to ask the right question.
That's what my suit is all about. I feel the answers are out there to anything. It's just the questions.
You got it. That's exactly right. The questions.
Go Google anything you want.
Yeah. But what's the question?
You get a million answers.
Right.
But it's asking that right question.
That's right.
A lot of people, and I'm sure you hear, the paperwork, or whatever. I mean, that's reality, but how do people, what's the best way to handle that, or what's the better way to?
Paperwork in relationship.
Well, I mean, getting a government contract, sounds like you're going to be, this manual is going to be small compared to that contract.
Yeah. Some of them can be pretty voluminous, I'll guarantee you. I'll give you an example. We recently issued a solicitation for a major piece of software, that will drive, and I work for a very large municipal government right outside of Washington, D.C. We put out a solicitation for an enterprise-wide piece of software that will run our finances and contract, do a big piece of software. That solicitation alone, just the advertisement, was 1,000 pages.
That's a solicitation.
Yeah. Now, 900 of those 1,000 pages was listing our requirements in an attempt to be as very clear as we could as to what we wanted. Most solicitations are not that big.
And what's the value of a contract like that usually?
Well, that particular solicitation will end up contract will end up probably being about a $30 or $40 million contract.
So $5,000 worth.
$5,000. Now, well, sadly, let me talk to you about because we talk about paperwork. It is true that for a lot of municipalities, a $5,000 contract for mugs can be just as thick as a $10 million library construction contract. So we try and streamline things. Government is changing, and government's understanding the need. But it is true, particularly small businesses and businesses not accustomed to dealing with government. Because I will tell you, I deal with large businesses who have never dealt with government before, and they have just as many questions as a small business does. That it can be daunting. The contract terms and conditions are written to protect the government. And it's not because the government's afraid, it's because the government recognizes it as a public trust and doesn't want to do things wrong. And so the terms and conditions, which define the operating parameters, how that contract will be administered, can in fact be daunting sometimes. What many governments do is, instead of trying to come up with a separate group of terms for one type of contract and another set of terms for another type of contract, they just say, you know what, let's just put them all the terms and conditions into every contract. And so you could literally have 200 terms and conditions, of which maybe only 80 apply to your particular contract, and the government assumes that well, and I know that doesn't apply, so we'll just agree that they don't. But a small business saying, yikes,
Wow,
I have to do this?
Yes.
The reality is you don't.
Right.
Again, ask questions.
So, I mean, to help to get those questions answered, again, is that the procurement office?
Yes, that's the procurement office. The procurement office, in that regard, again, is your point of contact.
Right.
They may have to consult with the jurisdiction's attorney regarding which apply, which don't. But generally, it's a common sense thing. If you're providing goods, if you're providing mugs, then you're not providing to me consulting services.
Right.
So the provisions that address consulting services don't apply.
So, I mean, if they look at that, I mean, a lot of people's first thing, I better get an attorney to cover my butt. You know?
Right.
But you're saying that, we're all reasonable people most of the time. And it's best just to go to the contractor and, hey, what about A, B, or C, or D? And you can get them explain it to you.
That's exactly right. I mean, the procurement office, once a solicitation is advertised, once we go out to the public, the government says, we want mugs.
Right.
Then your procurement office and those solicitations, if they're advertised, will usually have points of contact identified.
I see.
And they might say, look, if you're asking about the contract, talk to the procurement person. On the other hand, if you're asking about the mugs, talk to this person.
Right.
And so again, read the solicitation, follow the instructions. The biggest problem that businesses have is that they don't read the solicitation.
That's like your kids.
Read
it.
Exactly. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I can't tell you how many times in 30 years I've had a business call me and say, what time is the bid due and what day? And I say, if you look at the front page, it says.
Right.
So read the solicitation.
Yeah, I think all of us, just want to make one phone call and get a check in the mail, and life doesn't happen that way.
Well, and when I speak to businesses all the time, and I tell them, it's my responsibility to provide you an opportunity. It's your responsibility to make use of that opportunity.
Well, as far as, I think a couple things go through my mind, like the stimulus package, that's happening now. It seems like that's the only money in town, if and when it ever gets somewhere. Is that affecting you locally here?
Yeah, absolutely. It will. But the stimulus package is on a grand scale. It's big projects, big public works projects, roads, bridges, public safety facilities, healthcare facilities, healthcare services, IT services, public safety services. It's big stuff. It's all about creating jobs or retaining jobs. In fact, in the stimulus bill, a key reporting requirement on the part of recipients of the grant money is I have to report on the number of jobs created as well as the number of jobs retained.
Yeah, an article on the Post today about the recovery.gov and how it's taking so long to get there, and somebody
I haven't been on recovery.gov recently. When it was first put up, it was a great website, great information. I downloaded copies of the act and guidelines and articles. My guess is that as funds are finally now getting to be defined and distributed, the site's probably getting bogged down from traffic. But
the problem, I think they said in the paper, is that it only takes 2 levels, and it's only going to show you 2 steps where that money goes.
Oh, right.
So it's not going to show who you were giving the money to.
Well, let's talk about that, because the way typically that federal grants work, and state grants as well, in the case of federal grants, the Fed's going to distribute the money 2 ways. They're either going to do it directly to the recipient, or they'll work through the states.
Right.
If it's an environmental grant, an EPA grant, that grant might come directly to the county's Department of Environmental Protection. On the other hand, it could go to the state, and then the state can apportion it in 2 ways. One, either through a distributive formula that all the counties in the state get the funds distributed on a scale of need. That's one, is through a formula. And the other method is through a competitive process, where I'm submitting grant applications to the state, just like I would to the federal government, to, we need to do this, therefore we're requesting so much money. And then the state decides who gets what and how much. With the Recovery Act, this has happened so fast that the processes have not always fully been in place. And so, the Fed says, here's your money, states, and the state goes, How am I going to do this? And some of it's flowing more rapidly than others. The other thing is that the Fed's requirement is they wanted this money to hit the street and make positive impact and benefit as soon as possible. So the term shovel ready was coined as projects ready to go. Well, the way government works, of course, is we're very deliberative and purposeful in planning things. Right. So we don't necessarily have a large cache of projects that we're just waiting for money to go. Yeah. And so defining shovel ready and the time frames and parameters are still in the works. Now we're moving forward with great strides. We're looking at purchasing environmentally friendly buses for our transit system, for instance, using federal grant funds and things like that. So it's going to have good impact. It's already benefiting environmental issues. It's already impacting positively education. Here in the Washington, D.C. area, the very first transportation-related stimulus funds were done to improve New Hampshire Avenue here in Montgomery County.
Needs that.
It does. So it is happening. But it's still getting its legs in some respects.
I heard a story yesterday. This woman was at a conference, and it was about procurement. I was somewhere. Actually, it was energy stuff. And he said, this poor bureaucrat usually has a $5 million budget, and this year he's got to spend $3 billion.
Yeah.
How does someone do that?
Yikes.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you point that out, because that's, even a good thing can be a problem.
I mean, that sounds like a bigger problem.
It is. It's a huge problem.
And you know the stories that's going to happen a year or 2 years from now.
Well,
and
I will tell you this: the federal government is exceptionally good at auditing the money they grant out. Oh yeah, and we are very aware of that. I've done a number of contracts over the course of my career using grant funds, and they will come back and audit every penny. I see. Wow. And every penny that you can't prove you spent well, you owe back.
I see. Well, that sharpens the mind.
It does. So in fact, one of the big things that we're looking at is the reporting requirements. I have a meeting next week focusing on what are my requirements for reporting. And the other challenge is every grant's different.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly.
And it depends on the agency it's coming through.
Another thing about is subcontracting.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that seems like an incredible opportunity, too, for people.
That's a great point. We both what we call Tier 2 and Tier 3. Subcontractors and sub-subcontractors.
Oh, really?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that in working with small businesses on a regular basis, businesses where our needs, I mean, we're a large county.
Right.
This may not be true elsewhere, but when I'm going out for needs, oftentimes they're fairly large scale and could in fact reasonably be beyond the capacity of a small business. Right. So I actually have people on staff whose job it is to promote these linkages through subcontractors and sub-subcontractors to the prime contractor. The prime contractor is that's the company I have the contract with.
So you have staff that looking for people to supply your contractor?
Where we'll tell the contractor that these are socioeconomic programs. We're encouraging the prime contractors, the larger contractor, to do business with local businesses to support the local economy, and with minority and disadvantaged businesses.
Wow.
And so I have a staff, an office that's established to work with contractors to promote them. Now, we're not telling them who to work with. We're not saying, hey, I got a guy.
Yeah, my brother-in-law.
This guy owes me money. No, we're not doing that.
Well, what's a disadvantaged business?
A disadvantaged business is defined by law, by specific categories, and usually fall within the framework of a woman-owned business, a disabled or disabled veteran business. Some jurisdictions, and they vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, might be veterans as well, just disabled or not. African American, Hispanic, East Asian, South Asian. So it varies, and it's defined differently by each jurisdiction. And it's usually a business that's been certified as owned by a recognized minority. And certified meaning that you can't just tell me, hey, this is a women-owned business, when it's actually me doing the work and my wife is on the paper. No, we actually we work with the state of Maryland's program, where the state of Maryland will actually go in and say, okay, show me your rules of incorporation.
Yeah.
I want to see pay stubs. I want to visit your place of business. It's a very rigorous process so that we make sure that people aren't abusing it.
Right.
Here, we use the state's program, yes, because we actually used to have our own program, but we found that it was pretty redundant to the states. So we actually, in order to save money, said, well, listen, if the state's program is a great program. If they certify you, that's okay with us.
So,
we also recognize Federal 8A and other programs as
So if you're
well.
already one of those.
If you're already certified there, then we'll accept that.
Now, what about how does one find the major contractors to think about subcontracting? How do you be proactive?
Once again, that information is all publicly available. The best thing to do, because I talk to small businesses and I say, we advertise all of our large solicitations are advertised on the website. And they'll say, well, I can't compete, so I don't look at that.
Right, exactly.
I said, well, that's a mistake because you need to look at that. You may not be able to compete for that, but you can now market yourself to the people that will compete for those. Many times we'll have in a large public solicitation, we'll have a pre-bid meeting or a pre-proposal meeting. Now, what that is where we'll advertise a meeting before the date that the bids or proposals are due. We have a meeting. It's open to anyone can attend for people to come and ask questions. We'll provide a little bit more clarity that may not have been clear, or review our standard terms and conditions to make sure people understand them. And it's an opportunity for the bidders that are thinking about this to come and ask questions themselves. Now, to the small business who's interested in subcontracting opportunities, you're not going to bid, but you need to come to that to find out who is going to bid.
Yeah, that's true.
And then do some networking. Market yourself to those. Don't market yourself to me.
Exactly.
You're not submitting a bid to me. Market yourself to those folks. The other thing is that in some cases, some jurisdictions will publish a list of prospective bidders. These are people who have actually asked for a copy of the solicitation or have downloaded it, and we have a record of them downloading it. And they'll say, can I know who's done that? And again, this is another reason to go back and get copies of the current contracts. If the people that bid 2 years ago, the likelihood the next time they're going to bid again. So go talk to them now and develop a relationship.
Now, again, so it's going to the contracting office. We'll have that information about where to go to possibly get subcontractors.
Right.
Do you keep lists of those people too? Then, if I was
of the subcontractors?
Yes.
No.
If I wanted to be on a list, you said you're seeking those out.
Yes. Let's talk about vendor registration.
Okay.
That's what I think you're asking about. Almost everybody, large, small, medium, keeps some sort of database of vendors who are interested in, certainly who have done business with them, but are also interested in being notified of solicitations. Some are better databases than others. Here in our area, when I came here, I heard from the businesses that I have 5 major public agencies in this county who all contract separately for what they do. And bidders, prospective bidders, vendors that are interested in doing business with them, they had to go and register here, register here, and register over there. So we created a central portal where they can go to one place online, register. You can do it from your home, your library, wherever, and enter your data about your business, and you'll have to provide your 1099 federal forms and all this to satisfy us that you're a legitimate business. And you can register, and then you're instantly registered with all 5 of those major agencies. Now, that's not true everywhere. And so, but what you do, again, go on to the jurisdiction's municipality's website. If it's there, then if it's not there, then make a phone call and say, how do I register as a business interested? And typically what they'll do is they'll either have an online form or a paper form. You fill that out, and you'll list what you do. You'll be asked to say, I do concrete sidewalks, curbs, and gutters. And they'll put that in the database so that the next time they have a solicitation about that, you'll get a notice. Usually an email notice or maybe a postcard in the mail. Old tech was postcard in the mail.
I understand.
Now it's emails.
Right. So one more thing, help. I've seen like nonprofit organizations that help small businesses
Right.
get contracts and things like that. Are there those kind of groups in Montgomery County?
There are, and I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to come back to this. There are a nonprofit, and there are also chambers of commerce.
I see.
And others. Chambers of Commerce is a great opportunity
Right.
for businesses to network with businesses. And in fact, here in our county, we have a number of chambers of commerce that are both regional. There's one for the whole county,
Right.
and then there's some regional smaller chambers, and then there are also chambers for specific groups like the African American Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and others, and they tend to work together. And we actually make a lot of contact with them to go out and communicate to businesses. And many of those, particularly the larger chambers, will have small business subcommittees. And so when we're trying to find out what are the issues people are dealing with, what's the pulse, or to introduce changes and initiatives, I'll go out, or my staff will go out and speak to them about that.
So you're saying that this is a good place to learn more about the procedure.
Join your chamber.
Right.
I don't know what the dues are.
Yeah.
Join the chamber. Sadly, the statistics are that less than 20% of the businesses in any area are actually members of their chamber. So here's an advocate. Join your chamber of commerce. That's how you find it, and it's how you network with larger companies too. So that's one. And many chambers will also provide some advocacy support and training. There are nonprofits that do that, but mostly nonprofits are providing that training to other nonprofits. Nonprofits and for-profits. Nonprofits sometimes a little nervous about that. Departments of economic development are your best opportunity. Now here we have a very strong, where I work, a very strong economic development department. There are separate authorities in some jurisdictions, or again, they might be part of other departments in smaller jurisdictions. But ask about that. Ask about programs to help businesses get established, how to write a business plan, how to run a payroll. And then we work with our economic development department and conduct seminars on how to do business with the government. And actually, I speak at national forums all across and regional forums on how to do business with government. So the key is we want to demystify, pull back the veil. It's really not as complicated as you think. There may be a few more steps, but if you're patient and get through that, there's benefits in the long run.
Most of life is that way.
Exactly.
Well, you're a delight.
Well,
Thank you so
very much. Appreciate it.
See, now he too believes that contracts are better than grants.
That's exactly right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Oh, you were terrific. Yeah, so you've done this a lot.
Oh, yeah, I've done it before,
But that's it. I mean, just be honest and not to be pompous and all.